Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. You know how it is, we're always trying to improve, always striving for something new. So today we're going to take a deep dive into change, why it's so darn hard, and what we can actually do to make it stick.
It really is fascinating, isn't it? That feeling of being stuck. Wanting to change, but just not quite getting there.
Exactly. We've got some really interesting sources for this deep dive. We'll be exploring the science of habits, the psychology of change, and even some fun metaphors to help us wrap our heads around it all.
Oh, yeah, the metaphors are great. One of my favorites is this idea of our brains being like jungles.
Okay, tell me more about this jungle metaphor.
Well, imagine your brain as a dense, leafy jungle, right? Full of all these paths carved out by our actions and behaviors. The more we do something, the more established those paths become, eventually turning into superhighways of habit.
So our brain's basically saying, hey, this is the easy route, stick to the well-worn path. But what happens when we want to change, create a new path?
It's tough. Our brains are wired for efficiency, you see. They love taking the easy route. So those ingrained habits, those neural superhighways become our default. It's like trying to hack through a dense jungle with a butter knife.
That makes so much sense. It explains why we fall back into old patterns, even when we know they're not serving us.
Yeah.
It's those darn superhighways.
Exactly. And to really understand how to break free, we need to understand the difference between routines and habits.
Okay, so what's the difference?
Think of routines as those conscious sequences of actions that we choose to do, like following a recipe. It takes effort, right? But habits, those are more automatic, unconscious almost. They're triggered by specific cues.
So my morning routine might involve carefully making a fancy latte, measuring the espresso, frothing the milk, but then mindlessly reaching for a cookie, even though I'm trying to cut back on sugar. That's a habit.
You got it. And those triggers, those cues that set off a habit, they're everywhere. Think about buckling your seatbelt when you get in the car. That's a trigger prompting a habitual action.
So triggers are everywhere, but how do we use this to actually change? If habits can make us stuck, can they also help us improve?
Absolutely. The research shows that we can use our understanding of habits to create new, positive ones. It's pretty cool, actually.
So instead of saying, I want to be healthier, I should say, I'm going to walk for 50 minutes every day after lunch.
Exactly. And to make that new habit stick, you use triggers. Consistently link the new action to a specific time, place, or cue. You're essentially creating a new pathway in that jungle, a shortcut for your brain.
Like if I always put on my walkie shoes right after lunch and head straight out the door, I'm training my brain to associate that time and place with walking. It's my own little habit highway.
You got it. And here's another tip. Make the new action enjoyable. Pair it with something you like a podcast or exploring a new part of your neighborhood.
Oh, maybe I'll listen to the deep dive on my walk. But sometimes the whole process just feels daunting. What helps when we're feeling discouraged?
Well, one of the biggest things to remember is that change is a process, not a destination. Those new paths in the jungle take time to become well-trodden.
I can definitely relate to that. So how long does it actually take?
Well, the research suggests it can take anywhere from 15 to 250 days for a new behavior to become automatic. It's a pretty wide range, I know.
Wow, 250 days. That's a long time.
It can be, yeah. But the important thing is to not get discouraged. Setbacks were normal.
So even if I miss a day, I shouldn't beat myself up about it.
Exactly. Just get back on track and keep practicing consistency. Remember, be kind to yourself throughout the process. Celebrate the small wins,
It's not about being perfect. It's about progress. Those small steps, over time, they really do add up.
They absolutely do. But sometimes it's not just about forming a new habit. Sometimes it's about navigating those major life changes that shake things up and force us to rethink everything.
You're right. It's like a major earthquake hits our jungle, and suddenly the landscape is completely different. We have to figure out how to navigate this new terrain. Big life events, those can trigger a huge need for change.
Absolutely. Things like marriage, divorce, job changes, even global events like, a pandemic. These things force us to adapt.
So how do we even begin to navigate those bigger changes? Where do we even start to look for a new path when everything's been shaken up?
Well, that's where this next source comes in. It really highlights the importance of self-reflection during times of big change. Taking that step back and really asking yourself some tough questions.
Like what kind of tough questions?
Things like, what truly matters to me? What are my core values? And then, even deeper, are my actions lining up with those values?
Just kind of like using those values as a compass, right?
Right, yeah.
Helping us figure out which direction to head in when everything's changing around us.
Exactly. Once you have a good sense of your values, then you can start to set goals that actually fit with them. The source really emphasizes that those goals need to be clear, achievable, like, breaking down those big dreams into smaller steps.
This kind of goes back to what we were talking about with habits, right?
Yeah.
It's about focusing on those smaller, more consistent actions rather than trying to do everything at once. So whether we're talking about a new daily habit or a huge life change, it's the same idea. Break it down. Keep it simple.
You're totally right. And actually, this source brings up a cool strategy for setting those achievable goals. Have you ever heard of a vision board?
Oh, yeah. Vision boards. It's like that collage of images, quotes, stuff like that, right? To represent what you want in your life.
Yeah, exactly. And the idea is that by, seeing your goals all the time, you're basically making a mental plan for the future.
You know what? I actually tried that a few years ago. I was feeling kind of lost career-wise. And I made this whole vision board, pictures and words describing my dream job. And it actually really helped. It sounds kind of weird, but it kept me focused. And eventually I found a job that was a way better fit for me.
That's awesome. See, it really can be powerful. And it brings up another thing the source talks about, surrounding yourself with good people, positive influences.
Oh, yeah, because change can be tough. It's
Yeah.
so helpful to have people who believe in you cheer you on.
Totally. It's like having your own team of cheerleaders and coaches, to keep you going and help you stay on track.
This makes me think about self-care, too. When you're going through change, it can be exhausting.
Oh, absolutely. And the source actually talks about that too. Getting enough sleep, eating well, exercise, doing things you enjoy, those are all crucial.
It's like you got to keep your energy levels up so you can keep going.
Exactly. And it's not just the physical stuff, it's mental and emotional too. The source talks about mindfulness, self-compassion. That's huge because, change, it's rarely a straight line. There are going to be bumps along the way.
Yeah, you got to be kind to yourself when you mess up, right?
Totally. It's about realizing you're human, you're not perfect, and you're going to stumble, but you got to keep moving forward. And that brings us to another big theme in this source. Resilience. Change is challenging. There are going to be obstacles. But being able to bounce back from those tough times, that's what makes all the difference.
So resilience is like our inner strength, that thing that lets us keep going when things get hard.
Yeah, exactly. And the cool thing is, it's a skill you can actually build up over time, like practicing gratitude, focusing on your strengths.
I love that. Reminds me that we don't have to go through this alone, We can learn from each other, support each other.
Absolutely. And speaking of learning from others, this next source looks at how our social connections actually affect our ability to change.
Wait, really? Our relationships can impact how well we handle change. Tell me more.
Well, what's interesting is that this research shows our social networks can be like both accelerators and obstacles.
So the people around us can either push us forward or hold us back.
Yep. And it's not just our closest friends and family either. It's those bigger communities too, work, our neighborhoods, online groups even.
That makes sense. We're always influenced by the people and places around us. So how do we make sure those influences are positive, helping us grow and change,
That is the million-dollar question. And luckily, this research gives us some clues. We need to be aware of the social norms, the expectations within those networks we're in.
So like if all my friends are always eating junk food, it's going to be harder for me to eat healthy.
Exactly. But on the other hand, if you're surrounded by people who are trying to make positive changes too, well, that can be a huge motivator.
So it's about choosing our company wisely, right? Finding those communities that share our values.
Yes. It's not about ditching people who aren't on the same path, but just realizing that who we spend time with has a big impact.
This is so fascinating. Change isn't just about willpower. It's all these other factors, too. Our environment, the people around us.
It really is. And the best part is we have the power to choose those environments, to find those supportive communities.
Wow. This has been an incredible conversation. So much to think about. It
Yeah.
really is. We've talked about the science behind it all, the strategies, how our social circles play a role. But you know what we haven't touched on yet? Mindset. How our thinking affects things.
Oh, that's huge. And that's exactly where our last source comes in. It's all about the psychology of change, how our thoughts, beliefs, all that stuff can either help us change or make it way harder.
So it's not just about having the right plan. It's about having the right mindset, too.
Exactly. And this source talks about this thing called self-efficacy, which sounds kind of complicated.
Yeah, it does sound a bit jargony. What does it actually mean?
Basically, it's how much we believe in ourselves, our ability to actually make things happen. It's that I can do this feeling.
So if I think I can actually change, I'm more likely to actually pull it off.
Exactly. And there's research to back this up. The stronger our self-efficacy, the more motivated we stick with things longer, and ultimately, the more successful we are at making changes that last.
Okay, that makes sense. If you don't believe you could do it, why bother? Right.
Right.
But how do we actually get that self-efficacy, especially if we've, struggled with change in the past?
Well, the source suggests focusing on small wins, those little victories. Positive self-talk is huge, too, and reframing those past experiences.
So instead of dwelling on all the times we've tried and failed, we should celebrate those times we did succeed, even if it was something small.
Yes, and it's about changing that inner voice, those negative thoughts.
So instead of saying, "Ugh, I'm so bad at sticking to a workout routine," I should say, okay, maybe it's been tough before, but this time I'm going to find something that works for me.
Exactly. It's shifting from thinking our abilities are fixed to believing we can learn and grow. It's called a growth mindset.
So it's about embracing those challenges as opportunities to learn, not proof that we're doomed to fail.
And that brings us to another key point: perspective. How we look at things, the meaning we give our experiences. That has a huge impact on how well we handle change.
So if we can see those tough times as chances to grow, those setbacks as just temporary bumps, we're more likely to keep going.
Totally. It's about recognizing that change brings up a whole bunch of emotions: excitement, fear, doubt, the whole shebang, and it's all part of the process.
It's okay for it to be messy, uncomfortable sometimes. That doesn't mean we're doing it wrong.
Right. And this brings me to one last thing from this source that I think is so important: self-compassion. Change is hard, and we're going to screw up along the way. Being kind to ourselves, especially when we're struggling, that's what helps us stay motivated.
Yeah, we got to be our own cheerleaders, right? Give ourselves the same support we'd give a friend.
Yes. Those setbacks, they're normal. They're not failures. They're opportunities to learn, adjust, and most importantly, not give up.
This whole deep dive has been amazing. We've really gone deep into the world of change, haven't we? The science, the strategies, the social side of things, and now this whole mindset piece. I feel like I get it now, how change works and how to approach it in a way that's more, intentional, mindful.
Me too, absolutely.
So much good stuff for everyone listening to chew on. But before we wrap up, I want to leave everyone with a question. What's one tiny step you can take today, right now, that'll move you closer to the change you want to see in your life?
I love that challenge. And remember, you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to be perfect. Just start small. Be kind to yourself along the way and enjoy the ride.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the ever-changing world of change. Keep exploring, keep growing, and believe in yourselves. Until next time.